back, 200 years ago, 250 years ago, when we all came to America, there weren't any mortuaries or really funeral homes in the area. But there were funeral directors, there were morticians or embalmers that helped prepare the bodies. So most people had their viewings or ceremonies in their home or at the church that they built at the time. So where you get funeral home is it was basically when funeral service started here in America, they were taking converted homes and turning them into funeral parlors where people would come and gather. And then the term mortuary evolved towards middle of the century, where then they actually built buildings as designated funeral homes. So that's where the term mortuary comes from. So you have the difference. So funeral homes are kind of a home that's been converted into a place where people can gather for funerals. And the thing is, it would really be more for family gatherings in a home where they'd have like food and beverage and kind of mingling like a wake, where when you had the ceremony, they would move the body to the church where it was a little larger and you can bring more of the community together to have ceremonies. But coming back to the mortuary, since mortuaries were built as a funeral home, most mortuaries are built on a single level, so it's a single story building. The hallways are wider, the doorways are wider to accommodate the caskets and the large crowds. Typically, there's like a chapel setup that you can have a gathering within the building. There's an area designated for all the preparation of the bodies. And so it's more laid out for business purposes if you call it a mortuary. And where if you go to a funeral home, you're going to have like a house that's been converted. So you have all these little tiny rooms. So it's really more difficult to have gatherings in there. And then there's not the right, they would turn like a kitchen into the preparation area. So the rooms were smaller and not really conducive for preparing bodies. And then also there were basements and attics and different levels. And so they had to put elevators into some of these homes to make it work. So that's kind of the history and the difference between a funeral home and a mortuary and how it's evolved over the last 200 years.